All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Reformed Dissenters, the show where Reformed Christians dissent against popular ideas of culture by asserting a biblical worldview. My name is Bruce Johnson, joined as always by my brother Jacob Johnson.
Hello.
We are also joined today by another special guest, Jun Shiomitsu.
Correct.
Did I get it? Yes.
You got it.
Right.
You got
Awesome.
it. You got your visa to Japan now.
All right, sweet. Sounds good.
And starting out, if you could let our audience know who you are, what you do,
Yes.
and something
Cool.
interesting about.
Also,
things
I should
interesting
mention
about
we
you.
are at the we're at the Cross Politic
Right.
conference in Knoxville, Tennessee. So there's
All
that.
right. So, yeah, my name is Jun. I'm a Japanese national where the Christian population is about 0.1.
Oh wow.
Wow.
So
That's
I always
crazy.
joke to people when I leave Japan, the Christian population in Japan just plummeted. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what I do is, or let's say where I come from, I was homeschooled in Japan
Wow.
to be a pastor.
Well, that's great.
My parents
wonderful.
wanted me to be a pastor. I totally disappointed them. Went into investment banking,
Oh.
which is kind of like pastorship, right?
Yeah, it can be, right?
More or less.
If you're a Christian, anything can be like
yeah,
pastorship, right?
yeah. And so I did that for about 13 years. But then God changed my life. I went to get my MBA at a place in the UK called the University of Cambridge.
Oh wow.
And they have a divinity school there where I met some Ugandans.
Okay. Wow.
And Ugandan pastors who have a Bible college, Bible university in Uganda. They said, hey, June, come over and teach
Nice.
business and finance from a biblical perspective
In Uganda.
in Uganda.
Wow,
And I
wow.
said, sure.
That's fantastic.
I have no idea what that means, but sure. And that was the beginning of the journey for Avoda,
Wow.
2016.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
really
me.
cool. And so that's
Yeah.
your business, Avoda.
That's right.
And that's your shirt you're wearing now. Is your
That is correct.
nice,
Right
nice representing.
there. Yeah.
And there's
So you guys have a booth over there, and you've got all that stuff set up.
Yes, we do.
Which
Yeah.
is super cool. Sorry, I cut you off.
real quick, it's like an icebreaker question. I always like to ask these when we do these
Here I am
interviews.
jumping right into the.
These
deep
are
end
the
again.
scary
I have this
ones.
problem.
Yeah. Would you rather wrestle with a alligator or wrestle with a bear?
Oh,
Real question. It's a big question here.
so we're already wrestling, right?
Yeah.
You're in the middle. You don't have a choice.
Alligator, I think.
Wow.
Quicker death, probably. I'm gonna die anyway.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
funny.
That was the icebreaker?
Yeah.
Man, that's deep stuff.
Yeah, we don't mess around on this show. So,
Yeah.
I've been chatting with you guys, I feel like, for like 2 days now.
Yeah.
Some of your representatives have come over and we've chatted with you, and it's just been so cool. There's so many unique facets to your business and what Avoda is doing, and
Yeah.
it's hard to know where to start, but I'll just start with kind of your name and your logo. So your logo has this really cool, it looks like a chess piece, and it has like three
Yeah.
elements to it, right?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, is that a chess piece or is that a salt shaker? And I say, it's a chess piece.
Chess piece.
So, yeah, what it is, it's a chess piece with a cross on the top. And we are a business institute that trains businesses to build the kingdom of God through what they do.
Wonderful. That's
So, with that kind of a mission, it's very difficult, I think, for us to go into, for example, Muslim majority countries with a big cross on our logo. But if it's a chess piece and we say we're a
there you go.
strategic business institute,
Yes.
it could work. So
That's
Yeah.
great.
there's that. But
That's
anyway,
really
the
smart.
symbolism is the chess piece is the king piece. It's Jesus Christ, and we're professing that he is king of all.
Amen. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
also chess, which is a strategic game.
Right.
And, we have
Yeah.
a very strategic, at least we hope, a very strategic view to the Great Commission, which is to go and make disciples of all nations.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's what it stands for.
That's wonderful.
Avoda is Hebrew, avodah, actually,
Okay.
but avoda sounds cooler, I thought,
right.
is Hebrew for work, service, and worship.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really fascinating.
Yeah. That's what our shirt we have the go there for.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
it's,
Wow.
tying back to
You're right.
the Great
Absolutely.
Commission.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
You mentioned-
the bottom says and apply all of Scripture to all of life,
Yeah.
and that was we just put together a limited
Oh my
special edition
gosh.
T-shirts. So
Yeah.
All right.
But-
Yeah, we're brothers already.
yeah.
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But well, that's really fascinating. So
Thanks.
so business strategy, business for the kingdom. Now, yesterday, so you're a what do they call it? You're a sponsor of the show. You're a business sponsor of the FLF Feast Network, at least for this event, which is really cool. And so you were talking about statistically the amount of Christians that are in America as opposed to the amount of Christians now that are in all of Africa, and you mentioned some other countries as well. So, tell us a little bit about that. What are some of those statistics, and how are they encouraging and slightly discouraging?
So, Christians, there are all kinds of shades of Christians. I'm aware of that. But so I come from Japan, 0.1% Christian.
Wow,
Okay.
that still blows me
and
away.
decreasing.
Wow.
The United States is at 170 million Christians.
Yeah.
And decreasing at about 1.2 million a year.
Wow.
Africa is at 680 million.
Wow, 680
Increasing at 10 million a year.
Right?
Right?
That's exponential. Like,
And yeah, absolutely. So obviously that includes, all the denominations, probably, Roman Catholic and all of that together. But so does the statistic for the United States. We're talking about one big basket here.
Wow.
And if you look at Latin America, they have quite a lot of Christians, primarily Roman Catholic, but also decreasing. So Africa and actually China are two of the fastest growing Christian populations in the entire world right now.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, because I mean, all the time we've been in several denominations, and it seems like each denomination focuses on, sending missionaries to a specific country. I know the OPC sent missionaries to Uganda regularly, and we, there would be people that would come and give presentations on the mission work and all that kind of stuff in Uganda.
Yeah.
And then I think there was, we also had, Chinese missionaries, but that was way more secretive because of the nature of that country and how hostile it is.
Yeah. There were multiple times in which, we were hearing from our pastor and stuff that they had to get people out several times.
Evacuate. And they couldn't even give details on the evacuation and how that was going and who they were evacuating, and just, hey, just pray for, we have a missionary and his family, and can really even give names. But so Uganda, I take it, is not that hostile, and Africa is not that hostile to the gospel.
Well, not at all. Uganda is 84% Christian.
Wow. That's incredible. And again,
our
that
neighbors,
being the broad, Catholic, multiple denominations.
Yeah, I think the biggest number is Anglican.
Okay.
And then the second is Roman Catholic, but then you have all the other religions. But
Right.
Because of the culture of Africa, if you look at the Roman Catholics or the Anglicans, you think that they're probably Pentecostal or charismatic. The way they worship, they worship with just energy and song. And so, I mean, definitely not the frozen chosen, as if you call it. Zambia is 96% Christian.
Wow.
So you see these African majority countries.
Wow. Yeah.
And you have to start thinking strategically, I think, of what it means when we say, okay, go make disciples of all nations.
Right.
And we're thinking, I thought anyway, that's today 197 countries, if you include like the Vatican and Taiwan.
Wow.
And so where do you start?
Yeah.
And what do you start with? Because this is so massive.
It is so vast.
And we thought, okay, I can't go into all nations to share the gospel with all nations.
Right.
But I can, in my lifetime, go to somewhere or a region where all nations are going to. And where would that be? That's Africa.
Wow.
The entire world right now looks at
an interesting
Africa
point.
as the next economic
Really?
success story in the making.
Wow. That's
The World
fascinating.
Bank did an analysis of the 20 fastest growing countries in the world.
Wow.
Of the 20, 11 were in Africa. Africa is a $600 billion market.
Wow.
And so
$600
the world
billion
is going to Africa. You got countries that are 86% Christian, 96% Christian. We need to empower these Christian businesses so that the world actually gets there. When they actually get there, they see Christian businesses at work.
Well, and I think that's so fascinating too. And that's great because so many Christians today will limit the kingdom and not understand when we read verses that say, "In all that you do it as unto the Lord." That's one of our show verses. Matthew 5:13, be salt and light. But then also that 1 Corinthians passage, in all that you do it as unto the Lord. That includes your job.
Yeah.
And so many Christians don't do that because they don't understand how to do that. So I think that's fantastic that there's companies like yours that are zeroing in on that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Salt and light, that's my surname, by the way. Shiomitsu is Japanese for salt and light.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
That is
wow.
fascinating.
So yeah, I got responsibility there.
Good. You got a name to live up to, for sure.
I mean, I think it's we see today, like, everybody has this sort of pessimistic view of the future. A lot of people have this pessimistic view of the future.
We can't win. Christ has given us an impossible task.
Yeah.
But you look at the trends from the Bible all the way up until today. You find Israel, was segregated. That was the one Christian nation, and we hear in the Bible that all the other nations around it were the pagan nations.
Gentiles,
and then you see the growth into the Roman.
Just exploded.
Exactly. The Roman nation became Christian. And now we're seeing today that you can go throughout the entire world and claim to be a Christian, and then there is some people in anywhere you go that can sympathize with you, that understand, and that
the gospel's at least known.
Exactly.
And all the languages that the Bible is now available in, just almost literally every language now. Which is just, I mean, looking at and then hearing statistics like this, we can get stuck in America looking at the downhill slope.
I totally agree with that. I come to the United States once a year.
Wow.
Okay.
And this is the trip this year.
Well, we're honored.
And
That's
I
really
do
cool. Okay.
feel that Christians here have so much work to do. They feel like this downhill, and they feel a little bit, I wouldn't call it discouraged, but they feel like that, Christianity is kind of on the downward trajectory here. But I'm here to tell you, it may be that for the next few decades that the global center of Christianity shifts to places like Africa and China.
It's done that multiple times in the past.
So. And it's done it all the time.
You look at it in the Bible, in which all the Christians were persecuted. That was a downward slope, and then you see this huge uphill.
Nothing grows the church as much as persecution.
Amen.
We've seen that for 2,000 years.
Man meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
Exactly. And so, whatever's happening in the United States, don't get discouraged. God has a plan, and His plan is to grow the church, and there will be ultimate victory. So stay the course, and you got people in the African countries, totally rooting for you.
Wow!
Right?
Yeah.
They read your
likewise.
books. They read your books. Like the Africans in the Christians in Africa, we have a library at Avoda at our institute. It's full of books by, people who are here in this conference. In fact.
Wow.
Right?
So
cool. The effect of your work, the fruit of your work is not limited to America.
Right.
In places that you can't see, God is using you, and God is also changing the trajectory here. A little sprinkle of persecution always does help.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's that kind of is an example of one of the themes that Bruce and I have discussed before about being a city on a hill.
Yeah.
That when a nation follows God's law, then all the nations around it see it and see how successful it becomes, and then it's like, oh, we want to be like that nation.
Right.
And so for the longest time, I would say America has been a Christian nation. It's slowly going down. Well, actually, now most recently, more rapidly. But for the longest time, it's been that Christian nation and sort of been that city on a hill. People looked to America as the new national superpower.
Well, and the fascinating thing, too, is the way that God works. Every failure in human eyes is a new experience in history that future generations can learn from. And other people can learn from. So, the Romans who studied the Bible made progress and wrote books about it, and we study those, and the Greeks did the same, and then obviously the Israelites kept the book, the Torah, the Septuagint, kept that, and then American at the founding studied how to structure civil governments, and so now we have that in history. So it's all building to
And
a worldwide kingdom.
I agree, absolutely. And I would also encourage you by saying that you guys here in the United States benefit from hundreds of years of Christian, shall I say, heritage and tradition.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
and
which
you
we take for granted.
Which I think you take for granted. You know.
Yeah.
So in Uganda, for example, we have more Christians as a percentage of the population, but you don't have that.
Yeah.
And this is what the society looks like because of it. For example, the other day, big, huge intersection, very dangerous intersection. There was an old lady that sits on that fell from a taxi. The taxis are like motorcycles over there, right? Fell from the taxi, is sitting on the pavement in the middle of the intersection. Nobody helps her.
Oh, wow.
Nobody helps her. The taxi itself just zooms off.
Wow.
This is in a country with 86% of its population Christian, but does not have centuries of a Christian heritage.
You're relearning and unlearning.
They're still trying to learn as to what Christians are supposed to act like.
And it's going to take time.
Yeah.
It's going to take hundreds of years to get there, and you guys are already there. So no matter how you dip a little bit on that thing, you have so much in terms of Christian heritage assets that it's not going to go down that easy. Believe me. When I take my car, breaks down all the time. The roads there are rough. I take it out to the mechanic to have him, service it for 2 days. I always make sure that my tank is almost empty because I know he's going to take my fuel.
Wow.
I know it. Right? These are things you don't have here.
Wow.
And so
not yet,
America is still going
yet,
strong. It's still
Wow.
strong. It's a Christian nation. You're benefiting from it. So make no mistake.
Well, thank you for that perspective. That's and thank you for all of your hard work you're doing with Avoda. And if our listeners wanted to see more of what you're doing and help you out, where can they go to do that?
So if you go to www.avoda, AVODA, group.org.
Okay.
You can get to our website. So that's www.avodagroup.org. We are launching Christian startups in Africa, not just Uganda, but around as well. That are more than just Christian businesses, but intentionally kingdom-building businesses.
That's wonderful.
So
that's
if any of you listeners out there think, hey, I got this kind of skill, coding, that's tech, but whether it's masonry or fixing cars or carpentry, that you can give to some of the Christian brothers and sisters in Uganda, please do talk to us. We're here obviously to fundraise, and we need to raise $150,000 this year to make operations possible next year. So if you're that person with the deep pockets, also go to that website. Again, www.avodagroup.org.
Wonderful.
Help our brothers and sisters in Africa create a Christian culture.
Well, June, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Tght you.
And we'd love to have you maybe on the show again sometime in the future.
Would love
That'd be very cool.
All right.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you very much. All right.
Great. Alrighty, hello everyone. This is Bruce Johnson, Jacob Johnson, and you'll notice a third member with us today on the Reformed Dissenters. This is my brother Wesley. So
I am Wesley.
He's joining us. And if you're brand new to the show, we are the Reformed Dissenters, the show where Reformed Christians dissent against popular ideas of culture by asserting a biblical worldview. So we're just doing a really quick recap of day one.
Almost like a fireside chat.
You
could call it.
It was going to be Fireside, and we got back really late, so there's that. But we're going to do a quick recap of some of the things that we found most interesting about the conference today. Again, this is day one, so Friday. And then we'll probably put out another one tomorrow, or at least record another one, and then we'll go live next week. So,
hopefully that one's in front of a real fire.
Right, exactly. So Toby Sumter started out. He was one of the first lectures, which was really cool. Wesley's got his paper notebook, so that's always fun. And he started out by saying that in the beginning the world was perfect and God allowed a dragon to enter.
Yeah.
Which was really an interesting perspective. You know? We were talking to Toby Sumter earlier today, and I was hoping we could bring it up on the show to discuss it a little bit further with him. But the gist of his message was that we're going to encounter trials and hard times, and in what we're attempting to do, our kingdom work, working to apply all of Scripture to all of life, we will encounter those hard times, those challenges, but we shouldn't shrink back from it. Right?
And I think the really interesting part of it, and this is kind of getting to the end of his message, but also like it is the beginning, because he was saying that God said that creation was good, and that when God said creation was good, he then brought a dragon.
Well, yeah, the common theme throughout was this man, like Job. Have you seen my servant Job? He's an upright man. And Toby's his message was like, at that point you should say, oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Trials are coming, right?
Yeah. When someone is seen good in the sight of God, God brings. And I liked what Toby said closer to the end, is that God brings a dragon so that, or it brings a trial, brings a fight, so that that person's goodness will be glorified.
Made even better.
Right.
Yeah.
Will not only be made even better, but will be shown to all of the world their goodness, and as a glorification to God, really, and that's how we see it.
Yeah.
And it's proclaimed to the world. When our goodness is proclaimed to the world, it should be proclaimed in a way that glorifies God, and we should always be, putting it back to that.
Yeah.
But that this, and I had written down that it's a refining fire.
Yes.
Gold must go through a refining fire in order to go from good to very good.
I mean, one quote I have is, God breaks people so that he can make them stronger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have the same.
Okay.
God doesn't strive for good. He strives for very good. God takes what is good, breaks it, molds it into something better.
Yeah. That's really good. Oh, you wrote all that down. I was typing. I don't know how you got that all written down so quickly. That's good.
It's quick writing.
Yeah, right. That's good. Like another thing he harped on was the two common types of Christians that are causing issues today. Both of these are bad categories to be in. You don't want to be one of these two. And so the first one was, he called it the firebrand sons of thunder puppies. And they refuse to love. They refuse to be gentle as doves.
Yeah.
Right? But then the other is the lay down and take it. He called it the lay down and take it Christians. Right?
Yeah.
So you got the firebrand sons of thunder puppies.
Yeah.
And then the lay down and take it Christians. And they refuse to fight. And so those were kind of the dichotomy is there. Right?
Yeah.
And then Doug Wilson addressed that a lot more in his talk, which we'll get to in a minute, and kind of capitalized on that, delved into it even more, which was really cool.
I have two things that I still want to talk about when going over Toby Sumter's lecture. The first thing is he was talking about God is not telling man to shut up, but to speak up.
Yeah. Because he was talking about Job, and the humbling of Job.
Right. Yeah, and that's what it was in context.
We always read it as humbling.
Right.
There's another element.
When God says, "Were you there in the creation of the world? Do you know these things?" Like we see that point in the Bible as like a humbling, and Toby Sumter made sure to say, yes, it was a humbling, but there's another aspect to it, and it's that God is not telling man to shut up, don't speak. God is saying, speak up.
Right. Yeah.
I said in here, God made us not to be quiet and sit still while we watch him rule. God gave us dominion over the earth.
Yeah.
To prove we aren't supposed to just sit down. We have dominion. We have control over
supposed to be working.
Yeah. And that leads right into my second point, actually, and that's really amazing, because when God also brings to Job the question of if we can, well, and I translated into what is it for us, God asks us if we can wrestle Leviathan, we should say, well, not yet.
Yeah.
It's not,
that was
oh
really
no,
interesting.
I can't ever take on
Never do
Leviathan.
that. Right.
No, it's, oh, no, well, not yet.
Yeah.
But we will.
Yeah. Well, and kind of moving into a slightly different, well, actually, before we leave that, one of my notes is, God in his communication with Job is telling him not to lose heart. There's an element of humility. But there's also questions that God asked that Job could answer. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of the questions Job couldn't.
Yeah.
But there were some
and that fits
could.
into the speak up.
Right.
Part of it.
And the point was, it wasn't that Job should just quit.
Right.
It was that he should use these challenges as warm-ups. And then Toby Sumter said, Job had learned to rule his household well, but there's a whole universe waiting.
Right.
So that was really interesting.
For sure.
So we can move on. There were 2 other lectures, but before we do, we have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Did you want to add
Do you have
anything?
anything?
Before we...
I really do
He's
like.
got some cool notes over here. It's like full notebook and stuff. I love it.
I really like that part where it's like, not yet.
Not yet.
Like, alright, can you tame a dragon? Not yet.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no.
Yeah. Because really, like, when God is saying that, he's saying, you are to take dominion of all the creatures, land, water, all the creatures everywhere.
Right.
And when it comes to dragons, Leviathan, obviously those are not on the earth right now. Well, they could be. We're not saying that. That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But
it was an illustration.
yeah, and putting it into other terms so we can better understand it, are we ready to take on a lion? Right. Can we and
I mean that presents itself in all sorts of different ways culturally. We look at our society today and it looks impossible for us to make change.
Yeah.
But we forget who's really in control.
Sure.
And that's one of the things in Doug Wilson's presentation at the very end. He gave 11 principles to help you keep your head. And so I'd love to get into that in just a second.
Yeah.
But first, really quickly, Ben Merkel's morning lecture was really interesting on education. Did you guys have 2 quick bullet points on that?
I didn't get much. I just have a tick where I don't like to write down just
Literally
statistics.
everything. Right.
And so I wrote this, which I really like. I sort of, based on what he said, I sort of made this up.
your own thoughts, your own commentary.
Yeah, my own commentary.
Yeah.
We are commanded to go and disciple the nations, not to go and get discipled by the nations.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's a good point.
The public
It's
schools.
a nice way of phrasing it.
Yeah. The public schools are where the world teach their children in their propaganda, in their discipleship.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, one of the interesting things, it's a really good way of stating, all of this is kind of stuff we've talked about on the show before, but, Ben Merkel phrased it really well, and for those of you who don't know, he's the president of NSA, which is the new St. Andrews College in Moscow, Idaho. And, what he was saying was that college education now, today, is all about, he said, box ticking and ideological conformity. So you're ticking off, checking boxes and just saying, yep, I did that. Yep, I took that degree, or I took that course. It's all just for your job, and it's not about seeking truth. It's just about get this piece of paper that says you're allowed to work.
Right. Yeah, and he was basically saying that we have a lesser view of the liberal arts than what we used to.
Yeah.
And one point that I do want to bring up is, this is from my notes, liberal arts are not how to solve an equation, but how to apply it. How to take that equation, right? So the easy part is solving the equation. The harder part is to apply it. And that's what liberal arts tries to teach. At least that's what Ben Merkel was saying. This is how we practically apply it to our lives. I think that's very interesting.
And just as a final quote, because we have 4 minutes left, and we do want to get to Doug Wilson's 11 principles, which were all really good. But as a final thing, Ben Markle said something along the lines of, we think pessimistically about the future and our role in society, which we talk about that all the time, rather than positively seeking to guide and take dominion over society through truth and knowledge. We simply try to fit into it by being a cog in the machine. He talked a lot about that via a limited vocational degree.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Shorting out Doug Wilson's.
Yeah, there were two other presentations which were fantastic.
Yeah.
But we're kind of running short on time, so we'll skip right to the end.
Yeah, and so Doug Wilson's the title of his lecture was Rated R Combat, but I love his subtitle. His subtitles was The Creed of a Happy Warrior, and he lists out 11 principles.
Yeah.
That we probably won't go over all 11. So
watch, name them all.
Yeah, go and watch each of these lectures because obviously we're not.
FLFnetwork.com is where you can sign up. Yeah.
He's the link person, so I don't have all the links. So go and watch them because there's so much in them that obviously we're not going to cover all of it. And also go to our platform and find all of our interviews with each of these people.
Yeah, we're gonna have all of those up.
Yeah.
The gist of what he was trying to get across was, I think, twofold. One was remaining positive in the face of persecution, right? And that was a big thing in Toby Sumter's message. But then also, he talked a lot about how to have those kinds of discussions and conversations.
So
not backing down, not compromising, but also not being someone who is antagonistic just for the sake of being antagonistic.
Right.
He talked about the shepherd who, is just attacking the wolves because he wants to attack something and the wolves happen to be there.
Right.
He's a wolf at that point.
Yeah.
Instead of guarding the sheep. Yeah.
He was talking about, and along that lines, we're talking about fighting with our joy. Mm-hmm. That was one of his
that was like principle number 3. Yeah.
And in that we fight with our joy. We use joy as a weapon.
Yeah.
Joy is not something that we're defending.
Yeah, it's also not something we just receive as a reward after the fight's done.
Right.
We have joy throughout the fight.
Right. Yeah. And he was saying if we fight with anger, we can't come home and enjoy our joy. Because we'll be bitter and stuff.
Yeah.
And I really like his. I changed it. I can't have like a specific quote. I always change it to make it a tiny bit shorter so I can get it all in.
Yeah. Well, when you're handwriting, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said I wrote in my notes here. A sense of humor is a great tool.
Yeah.
And Doug Wilson was saying that in his lecture that you can't that humor used in the proper way, a biblical way, is a good way to fight.
Yeah.
Mocking tyrants is a good way to fight.
Yeah, that's what Christ did. He had so many examples of that, which was really fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point. Yeah, so we're about out of time, but we'd recommend looking all of those up. There were so many, and like we were saying earlier, some of the key points was take heart, be optimistic.
Yeah.
But also
we have won the fight.
Yes.
That was another thing. But we can be optimistic because we've already won. We have already won. And he brought up Isaiah 2:4.
That's good. Yeah, he shall judge between the nations and shall decide disputes for many nations. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Yeah. And my thoughts at the end of that one section was kind of a thing that we've talked about, at least in our Kingdom series.
Yeah.
All authority is God's.
Yep.
So we have won. Just news needs to get to the enemy.
Yeah.
And that's through us.
Yeah.
We need to let the enemy know that we've won.
Yeah, and one quote that I had just, wrap things up. Doug Wilson said, Christ is Lord, and if Christ is Lord, then other petty tyrants are not. Which is like, yep, we need to remember that. So, any finishing thoughts?
I want to just give
Wes is going to give us the whole wrap up. All right.
a good quick ending. Go out and be the Christian that gets shot.
That would make a lot more sense when you watch the presentation.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us in this fireside chat.
Yeah.
Next time will be even more of a fireside chat.
Right.
Thanks so much for watching or listening to this episode. Don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed it. Tune in tomorrow and join us as we discuss standing strong for the kingdom of God with Pastor Jared Longshore, and how Christians should consider Bitcoin from a biblical perspective with David Catrone. And remember, everyone, in all that you do, do it as unto the Lord.